Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Ray Addison. Headliners is coming right up, but first, here are the news headlines. And our top story, the government is launching a review to find out why some mobile phone users did not receive today's emergency test alert. At 3 p.m, most people received a message on their home screen, along with a sound and vibration for up to 10 seconds. However, users on some networks, including 3, did not. There's also been reports online that some people have not been able to make or receive calls since that test. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden says the alert could save people's lives in the future.
It's the case that this has been developed with the National Cyber Security Centre, which forms part of GCHQ. There will be very strict procedures in place for its authorisation, and it will only be used in a situation where your viewers' lives are in danger. I'm determined that there is a very high bar for the usage of this.
The Prime Minister has hailed the brave efforts of the UK's armed forces after they helped British diplomats and their families to escape fighting in Sudan. They carried out a complex mission in the capital, Khartoum, alongside other allies. Hundreds of civilians have died in the violent conflict between the Sudanese army and a rival paramilitary group. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says the government will continue to ensure the safety of British nationals who remain in the country.
We have taken the decision to temporarily close the embassy and to relocate our embassy staff. That gives us the best opportunity to project our diplomatic support back into Sudan, but we remain absolutely committed to support British nationals in Sudan. We will do so in close coordination with our international partners. But the best thing that we can do to support British nationals, and indeed everyone in Sudan, is push the generals involved in this conflict to bring it to an end, and that will remain the priority of our diplomatic focus in the region.
Suella Braverman has been criticised by an Algerian asylum seeker during an Extinction Rebellion protest outside the Home Office. 24-year-old Moon, who crossed the English Channel in a small boat in December, said no human is illegal, whilst protesters chanted refugees are welcome here. The comments come after the Home Secretary said it's crucial that the government does have the power to deport migrants without being blocked by the European Court of Human Rights. 11 small boats carrying nearly 500 people made the dangerous crossing yesterday. Diane Abbott has been suspended as a Labour MP pending an investigation after she claimed that Jewish people are not subject to racism. In a letter to the Observer newspaper, the former Shadow Health Secretary said Jewish people experience prejudice like Irish or red-headed people, but not actual racism. She's since withdrawn the remarks and apologised for any offence caused. However, the Labour Party has called the comments deeply offensive and wrong. And 2 new pictures of Prince Louis have been published today as he celebrated his 5th birthday. He's been photographed being pushed in a wheelbarrow by his mum. Louis is expected to accompany his siblings in the procession from Westminster Abbey during the King's coronation next month. We're on TV, online, on DAB+ radio and on TuneIn too. This, of course, is GB News. Time now for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and joining me tonight to pluck the sweetest pickings from tomorrow's newspapers are my comedy brothers, Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. There, look at those guys. What handsome team we have this evening. How are you both? You guys all right?
I'm not all right today. I don't think I'm having one of those. I want to apologise in advance for today's show.
OK. Can you tell us specifics here? I mean, you ever all right?
I'm underprepared. I know you think I don't get prepared for these shows.
Oh, my God.
So I know I shouldn't admit this, but I don't know what's going on.
You're underprepared compared to your usual benchmark, which is already very low.
Believe it or not, I read most of the stories. People don't believe that I do. Well,
that's nice. Yeah, but it doesn't go in. I mean, you read the headlines.
Yeah, because they're not important. They're non-stories.
They're non-stories. Thank you for just...
I was going to say...
They know it's non-stories.
I was going to say, imagine a policeman being like, we investigate most of the crimes, but actually they hardly investigate any, so that's still quite a high bar.
They're non-crime.
Most is quite good.
Investigate them.
Good point.
I like the T-shirt, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yes, that's
a good look.
Make me look a bit thinner.
Yeah, well, I was going to say...
Not the reason.
Cool, well, look, let's have a quick look at Monday's front pages. We have The Times. Corbyn sparks new Labour row over racism. I wonder if we're going to talk about that. The Eye. Abbott loses Labour whip over offensive race comments. The Telegraph. UK citizens abandoned amid feeble response to Sudan crisis. Daily Mail. Time to scrap the tourist tax and get Britain booming again. The Mirror. Rod. Give nurses a rise now. And finally, the Daily Star, coronation heat. Swelter to be a real...
Swelter to be a real belter.
Real belter.
There you go.
So, not a wheel belter.
Happy to help.
Oh my God, I'm turning into Jonathan Ross. Right, let's start with the Eye, Lewis.
Well, this is the big story of the day, which I know Josh is going to be totally in love with, is Diane Abbott.
I'm not in love with it at all. I hate it.
You hate the story, but you love hearing about this. That Diane,
I don't. I hate it. I'm tired.
Well, just not fight with me on this.
All right.
You're going to love it. You love it.
I don't love it.
You love the idea that Diane Abbott, who is Jeremy Corbyn's right hand, whatever, has been suspended by the Labour Party after suggesting that Jews do not face racism.
Yeah, she didn't suggest it. She pretty much stated that outright.
Well, she said that there's a difference between prejudice and racism, which I don't know what it is. But she basically lumped the Jews with the Irish people and the travellers.
And the redhead people.
And the redheaded people, saying, we haven't found... Basically what Diane Abbott is, she is the Whoopi Goldberg of Britain. Because Whoopi Goldberg said the exact same thing. She said that the Jews didn't face racism by the Nazis.
They said Jews are white.
White.
White supremacists.
Are white, so they were being killed for other reasons. But I'm going to tell you something why this is horrific as a story. Because it just makes people hate the Jews even more. Because the fact that she didn't say anything bad about the Jews. She just said that Jews didn't have that big a problem. Why does everybody have to say the exact same thing? Did she say that the Jews didn't have any problem? Yeah, she said that. So we have to let people discuss things, and if you prevent them from discussing it, and we've learned that from Free Speech Nation and from all these free speech issues, when you stop people from discussing things openly, Josh, then it goes into the back of their mind, and then...
Okay. Lewis, I'm going to get you kicked out of shul. I'm going to speak to our rabbi about you.
Yeah.
Nick, what's your take on it?
Well, it's very different from Lewis's take. I mean, I think, if anything, people are rallying to support Jewish people because what she said was awful. About Jewish people and also Irish people and travellers and so on. There's this bizarre woke thing you have to do of saying that certain races have suffered and certain races are victims and other ones aren't. There's this bizarre attempt to classify things. And she said that only certain races, only black people have been on ships and manacled to ships, and no white-seeming people had been on ships.
Yeah.
The stupid thing about this is it's historically illiterate as well, because although obviously that was transatlantic slavery, the word slave comes from Slav, because Slav people were enslaved in the 9th century by Muslims in Spain. Then you've got the fact that in the Ottoman Empire still had white slaves decades after American slavery ended. So the point is, everyone's been enslaved at some point.
You had slaves in the Holocaust.
Right.
You had slaves in Nazi
So
Germany.
Jewish people obviously suffered racism, but all races have been enslaved, so that was annoying as well. But then came the bizarre apology where she said that this was a draft. There's obviously your first draft is just mad and racist. Sorry guys, that one slipped out. And then she said she wanted to disassociate herself from the comments. They were made today, they were published today, and on the same day, she's like, it's like me saying, that thing I said in the intro with Lewis, I totally disassociate myself. It was 2 minutes ago. So that was mad as well.
Shouldn't she be allowed to say that? So she just
but again, we have.
She's not doing it. She's acting like it's a major thing what she did. She didn't do anything major. She just said something. She wasn't advocating killing Jews. She wasn't advocating.
Well, she's basically ignoring the Holocaust, something that's happened in living memory, and saying that it doesn't matter. That's essentially the gist.
Yeah, she's an idiot. So
and to what happened to the Roma people, and whatever. And the fact that pretending that this stuff doesn't still exist for Jewish people and travellers and whatever who are still victims of racism.
She is an idiot, Josh.
Well, actually, she's not an idiot. She went to Cambridge. She got a history degree.
You can still be an idiot. Everything that
she has suffered a lot of racism herself and has pushed through boundaries.
But the fact that she doesn't know about the pain that the Irish people had, the travellers had, even redheaded people had, it makes her unfit to be in politics. And the fact that she printed this has shown the world that she...
Well, it was the observer.
So now you're saying the opposite. Now you're saying she is unfit to be... The thing is, she has said mad things. I mean, she said that Mao, on balance, did more good than harm, which was a bizarre thing to say. We're not... When you used to line up saying mad things, the strange thing is, why do you feel the need to do this? And it's because when you've embraced the new ideology of the left, this kind of hierarchy, she was desperate to make the point that these people haven't suffered in quite the same way as these other people, because obsessed with this hierarchy.
It's like, guess what? Slavery and racism against black racism is really bad, and also the Holocaust is really bad, and Roma people being persecuted is really bad. They're all bad. It doesn't have to be this competition. And by sort of saying that this hierarchy of racism, it doesn't exist. She proves that it does in this letter. But why the Observer put it? But the other one question I want to say before we move on is it right that she lost the whip? And did Labour really have a choice?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I wonder how many people in Labour secretly feel the same way. Because all she's doing is expressing the kind of critical race theory, kind of woke view, identitarian stuff, which a lot of them agree with. But of course they had to. Yeah, they were bound to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're wrong. Or maybe you're right. I think at the end of the day...
Those are the two options.
At the end of the day, she's an idiot. Okay? She's a well-educated, bright...
And by the way, she's not why people hate Jews. You are right. People hate Jews. By the way, I should just say that I have 3 red-headed Jewish children, so we get it pretty bad there. What have the Telegraph got for us, Nick?
Yeah, well, they're going with UK citizens abandoned amid feeble response to Sudan crisis. So you've got this fighting that's kicked off in Sudan since April 14th, and they've had to evacuate people, but the accusation is they've evacuated the embassy diplomats first before the ordinary people, who've essentially been told to shelter in place, which is a bit like duck and cover. Yeah. It's not ideal, and they're comparing it to Kabul and Biden's disastrous retreat there. And the argument against is, well, you've got the embassy people are under the most immediate threat, so you have to prioritise them. And there's also a concern about how many people you can realistically evacuate. You can't do 5,000, they're saying. But they've managed to get about 1,200 out, so, apparently. So, yeah, so that's basically it.
I mean, the big question, Lewis, is, are there any dogs in danger?
Well, English people do care about that, obviously. I mean, I tried to figure out what the Sudan story is.
Well, basically,
I've just summed it up really well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. But basically, up north, you've got all the infrastructure. Down south, you've got all the oil. Yeah. They split it into 2 countries because they were at war. And so they sort of made somewhat of a peace. But, of course, one side's got the oil, one side's got the infrastructure, there's fighting. So now the army...
Are they fighting between the South Sudan new country and the Sudan North country?
Yeah, to take control. But it's
or it seems like a civil war that's going on.
Well, it is a civil war, but it was a civil war before.
No, it's not a civil war.
Because
now you have two countries. They're not. I don't think they're fighting across Sudan.
Anyway, there are still hundreds. They're saying at least hundreds of British citizens there. Whether they're going to get there out. And the other story here is about body cams.
Yeah, body cams for nurses to reduce sex attacks. And I kind of almost like laughed in a bleak way there because it's so bleak and horrendous. So there's been 6,500 plus reports of rape and sexual assault on nurses since 2019. Wow. This is our disgusting culture and now that obviously the police have body cams, but now nurses are going to have. I mean, it's just another story of total cultural decay.
For the police, it's to stop them doing the raping and whatnot.
Yeah, the police have it for them, you're right. Whereas the nurses, it's more they're being attacked, correct. Good satirical point about the police there. Lewis, I'm almost scared to ask you if you have anything on this.
Lewis, are you wearing a body cam right now?
I don't know. I mean, is everybody going to have body cams? I mean, bad things can happen every minute of every day.
There's a book called The Circle, which is a really good Dave Vegas book, and it's all about everybody eventually does wear these body cams to prove everything all the time and have our lives recorded, for those of us who don't have a TV show to go on to. But do you think this is a good way? Obviously, we need to protect our nurses and the people who work in our health system.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, like the hospital that I go to, and I'm quite friendly with the staff there, they're lovely people. But it's like anybody can just walk in, and there are long corridors, and you can go pretty much anywhere. So there is. I could see they need a sense of security, and if that'll help.
All right, yeah, certainly when you're about. So, what are the Mirror going with, Lewis?
Well, the Mirror's going with the ex-Tory voters steps up to fight. Rod Stewart, give nurses a pay rise now, and he's probably one of the richest men in Britain. Probably, he's got probably hundreds of millions.
Have you got that? That's a fact, do you? Are you just guessing that?
I'm just guessing it. How can he not have hundreds of millions? He's been a star for so long. I mean, he's not rich enough to get his mole removed.
Now, why are you not saying the word non-story?
It is a real story in a way. I mean, because at the end of the day, the nurses should get more money, okay, because inflation has basically eaten away at their income. But on the other hand, it was nurses that caused the inflation in the first place.
But on the other hand...
listen to what I'm saying.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying on the other hand, why have we got a picture of Rod Stewart on here, Nick?
Because Rod Stewart is a little bit of virtue signaling, and he's being a great guy by giving away money that isn't his. But at the end of the day, we'd like to. I personally don't think. I think nurses and doctors and the whole medical authority should be disbanded. They're not fit for.
I didn't see that twist coming at the end. That was like the Sixth Sense.
Jewish stuff now, he loves the nurses.
That was like Kaiser Soze. At the very end, ban all doctors and nurses.
Because you can see both sides.
He's a doctors and nurses truther. Water dehydrates you. It doesn't believe in it. Bread is fake.
Am I wrong that we were applauding? We were all in a panic over the COVID, and because we're in a panic, they started to give out money, which set this whole inflation in.
The only annoying thing is it's quite easy for celebrities to have a pop at the Tories. Carol Vorderman's had a whole second career just making obvious pot shots at the Tories. It's a bit like that.
I don't know why it needs to be on the front page. And finally, very quickly, Nick, we've got the Daily Star.
Quickly, Josh, you don't want to spend more time on Coronation Heat. It's like Coronation Street, but it's heat.
All right, let's go to the break then.
It's going to be hot during the coronation. I've looked at the story online to find out more, but that is all there is.
Oh, really? Well, I think it's a good thing.
It's coming in from the Canary Islands, and it's 10 times likelier to be hot than it is to be cool, Josh.
Thank you so much for that wonderful, informative story there. That's all the front pages. Part one's in the bag. Join us in a few for an SMP trans kid nanny state smorgasbord of delight. See you in 2.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today. Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie. These dudes are still Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. Stop squabbling there. Right, let's go on to some really fun fare here. We have the implosion of the SNP. What developments have the Times uncovered, Nick?
It's so much fun, Josh. So the SNP investigation, police search for burner phone SIM cards. Remember The Wire?
Yeah.
So basically,
Best TV show ever.
we're going to have Nicola Sturgeon kind of sending pictures of clock faces and hanging out near pigeons, only talking in person.
Who would she be in The Wire, do you think?
She's Marlowe, I think.
Really?
I don't know,
You're giving her way too much credit.
You're right. Oh, yeah, she's probably more gets killed off in maybe the second season, probably, right?
Yeah.
Well,
as it turns
Barksdale?
out.
She's maybe a Barksdale.
I don't know.
Anyway, this is if you haven't watched The Wire, none of that meant anything to you. But they use burner phones to avoid detection by the police, and the SNP have done the same thing, and it's incredible. So, and they also say the purchase of luxury pens, designer kitchenware, and even a fridge freezer is being scrutinised. Exactly the same prizes you got on an 80s game show.
Why do they need a fridge freezer in Scotland? Just stick it outside
to go in the luxury camper. It's all very strange, and they say that inevitably Sturgeon will be questioned over this, and they're sort of going through all the other members of the SNP as you've probably followed. But this burner phones thing is the latest. People are saying there's nothing wrong with it. It's fine to have a burner phone, but it's a bit weird, isn't it, when you're in a political party, just like, hit me on my burner. It's a bit mad.
If you've got a burner phone, it means you're either cheating on your partner or you're stealing thousands of pounds from your political party. That's usually the truth. Or you're dealing drugs.
But just remember, we can't say anything live, so you can
have to
ask us a question.
No, all I was saying was she was cheating on her husband.
Right.
I'm joking.
Are they doing it?
Stop it, don't investigate.
Do they have burner phones?
Yeah.
You say it's a question. Some people they may appear to some people satirically to have burner phones.
Does the SNP exist?
Right.
Yeah.
But my question is, does the police have a right to be involved in this? This is no, seriously. Seriously, if somebody has a complaint been made by the political party, have they said, please investigate these things?
Yes.
No, they have not done that.
Yes, they have.
Have they?
Was it. Yeah, they had but didn't you? You can't get through the bit. A bunch of complaints were made by SNP members into where these donations have gone.
By SNP members or by the SNP itself? It's an internal issue with the SNP.
Okay.
Just because somebody steals money from an organization, you can't say, well, the police can. We're going to check it out because we think someone's stealing money from that organization. A complaint.
Lewis, I want to give you 5 more seconds to say now the total opposite point.
Lewis, how many burner phones do you have?
I've used burner phones myself when I'm on movie sets.
What are you doing on this set?
Because we're not allowed to bring our phones on.
Where do you store it? Where do you hide it?
That. But I am in The Diplomat. Have you seen The Diplomat on Netflix? Episode 7 or 8. Diplomat.
Wow, that's related.
Yeah.
Thank you, and that's your expertise about the SNP story. Thank you. Right, let's go on to Monday's Metro next. And turns out the only thing worse than emergency alert, Lewis, is no emergency alert.
Yeah, well, this is really horrific. It's a Sunday roast and nap.
This is horrific.
What is on with you today? This is a non-story.
No, this is the biggest story.
Oh my gosh,
it is a big story.
It is a really big story because basically what they've basically told everybody in the country. You know what, Josh? You're ridiculous. Everybody in the country that we have your phone number, that we know exactly where. If you have somebody's phone number, they know where you are, and they're telling everybody we know where you are, and we can get in contact with you at any time.
That's why I got a burner phone.
Okay, like they said, this was a test of the Emergency Alert Service, which is supposed to keep track of where everybody is. The nanny state. Nanny state is a nice way of putting it. It's the big state. They know where you are. Okay, and I'm going to tell you number 2. It's a total waste of time because the first time this thing goes off, no one's going to pay attention to it. I know British people. They're going to think, oh, this is rubbish. When we have fire alarms here in this building or any building, when was the last time you said, oh my God, we're going to die, we got to get the hell out? We waited. Everybody waits. So
yeah, no, Joe, I agree with Lewis.
You've convinced me. You've convinced me.
I was only laughing at you. It's brilliant comic timing when you said this is horrific. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Look, it came a minute early, which was annoying anyway, and typical bad government organisation. It made this really annoying noise. I was trying to write a brilliant tweet about Lewis, and it was. And if it is a crisis, the last person you want is the government, right? Oh, wait, well, the government. Yeah. You want someone competent like Elon Musk texting you or Michael Jordan or someone.
Yeah.
And like you say, post-COVID, the idea, it's kind of punctured the illusion that we have any privacy. You know what I mean? It's like they can just access all our phones immediately, make them do anything. They could put a COVID passport on there. It's sort of punctured the illusion of autonomy and privacy to me. And that may have been naive anyway, but it's just a reminder the government can just do anything, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly.
I think sending you a message, by the way, I thought the point of the story was that it didn't really work. I mean, I didn't get any messages.
Maybe you turned it off. Did you probably turn it off?
I didn't get it.
You're following a lot of forums that wake up and you turned it off.
I was excited. I've been excited.
I've turned it off now.
This has been building for months. This story has been going on and on for months, and this was the moment.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I found out I'm not on the system.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't turn it off.
Enough people knew about it. Enough people to say, chill.
I feel left out. Let's check out The Guardian next. And shock horror, which side are they taking in the transing our kids debate, Nick?
This is awful. So this is The Guardian saying teachers warn new gender guidance for English schools could put children at risk. And they're saying it creates an atmosphere of fear and that it's dangerous. And what they're saying is dangerous is telling parents that your child wants to change gender. So it's just The Guardian showing their hands that they think your children belong to the state and that they're totally against the family, which we all know, but they're admitting it here. And it's just gaslighting. And they've got this gaslighting line that the union leaders accuse ministers of trying to inflame a culture war. They're not inflaming a culture war. They're bringing in basic safeguarding. If your kid suddenly decides they're a different gender, of course you have to inform the parents. And it's disgusting that The Guardian is taking this stance saying that telling the parents is the dangerous thing. And it's just sinister and horrendous.
Well, actually, I mean, this is the excuse that we always hear, isn't it? Where they just say, oh, it's deflecting away from the teacher's pay. Those are real matters that we do need to solve and fix. But the point is, this, as absolutely as Nick said, this is a safeguarding issue, and the fact that if my kids were going through something and the school was deliberately withholding that information from me, their parent, their carer, that is disgusting, right, Lewis?
It would be disgusting, but it's also a safeguarding issue on the other side. I don't agree with The Guardian, but you can see how both sides think the same thing. It's a safeguarding issue on behalf of the Guardian, thinking that parents don't know anything. And most parents are complete idiots. Diane Abbott has children.
You have children.
I have children. But they're mostly in the mother's care, so they turned out
That's
to be
a rare case where you probably shouldn't inform the parent if it's Lewis. But in most cases, the only thing that bothers me, people say Labour couldn't be any worse than these Tories, but what if Labour overturned these kind of things? At least the Conservatives now, as bad as they've been, people like Miriam Cates are looking into these kind of things and trying to do something. What if Labour overturned this kind of thing?
I think they finally cottoned on that most of the country is actually concerned about this stuff, and people have children or not, and women's sports and the various other things. People aren't going to stand for this stuff.
No, you are wrong, Josh. No, people have not cottoned on. I think the majority of people have more faith in the state than they do in individual parents.
Well, I just want to say one final thing here is that this article in The Guardian is incredibly disingenuous in how it constantly conflates being gay with trans, and they're talking about like people responding to their kids being gay, and they keep on sort of mixing it up here.
Yeah.
And that they're two totally separate issues here.
That's true. And last night we had beautiful Vanity on, who is a drag queen, and they conflate her with the trans issue, which is then conflated with gay things, which, you know. So everything is being conflated because there are no Venn diagrams anymore. There's no overlap. You're either in one side or the other side. There's no room
Is that you're showing your testicles there? Wonderful.
Sorry.
Sticking with my former explorer, employer, freelance, by the way, at The Guardian. And Lewis, what word would you use to mark The Guardian's homework on this article?
Well, something positive and life-affirming. I'd like to give him a little thumbs up. Anyway, it's The Guardian, and they said Ofsted chief admits to a quote, culture of fear around England's school inspection, right? And her name is Amanda Spielman. And she said she says people get nervous when the Ofsted people come and investigate the schools. And she said, but for most schools and for most heads, it's a positive and affirming experience.
Well, the good schools.
Yeah. So most people have a really great time. It just so happened that one woman who was the head of a school in Berkshire killed herself over being downgraded from outstanding to what did they say?
Inadequate.
Inadequate, which is they don't give out inadequate unless they want someone to commit suicide.
Oh my gosh!
That's
all right,
probably libelous.
Is that libelous?
I don't know.
I feel like I have to apologise. I'm not sure what's going on there. That was the most
that was a bit
thing I've ever heard.
extreme. I didn't mean it that way.
Okay, let's take it on side. Don't tweet him. All right, Nick, what's your take? But by the way, I would say, do you know why they were downgraded to inadequate?
I don't know.
I believe there was something about twerking or something. Well, maybe that was another school that they.
Well, we've covered before the fact that Ofsted doesn't really have much correlation with grades. It's more of a subjective overall feeling of the vibe of the school. But the people do like it as a shorthand. They get inadequate or outstanding. But obviously, it's a lot of pressure for people. And obviously, and perhaps the heads need some sort of outlet for that, someone to speak to or something. I don't know what the solution is there. But this idea that you can just change everything because of pressure. People have pressure in all sorts of roles, and obviously it affects people differently. But you can't just get rid of pressure. So I don't think the answer is not necessarily just get rid of Ofsted, is it? The answer is people need help with dealing with high-pressure situations.
Possibly, but I think also one of the teachers' union had said that the problem was the consistency between the different people who come in and how, in terms of the different teams and how they judge the schools. And that's where I think some people feel that they've been unfairly treated, whereas a positive team would come in and
yeah, of course they're going to feel it.
Decision.
I think you're wrong, Nick. Is that we should get, whatever it is, this country is the most centralized place in the world. The other story says that there's gender guidance, which comes from the top. And in this story, it's Ofsted, which comes from the top. With these alerts for nuclear war, which comes from the top. This country has lost faith in the people and acts like everything needs to be controlled.
So how am I wrong?
You're wrong because you said we can't get rid of Ofsted, and I think we should get rid of Ofsted, and we should get rid of public schools.
I just said one can't get rid of pressure from life. Ofsted, I don't particularly mind either way. Yeah. I'm saying it's not necessarily the answer to get rid of high-pressure situations. It's more, how does the individual cope with that situation? Because there's always going to be pressure in a head teacher role and other similar roles. That was my point.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm incredibly disappointed. We were meant to go to a break like 2 minutes ago, but I wanted to see if this was going to end in fisticuffs.
I want to apologise. No, I was wrong. Okay, I was wrong. I wasn't listening to
Look at that. A Lewis Schaefer apology. Wonderful. Part 2 is now over. We've got some killer stuff coming up. We've got gonorrhea kissing, fox killing animal welfare charities, and Generation Z cannot open doors. Stick around.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I have walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us 4, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and I wish that you could have been here during the break. Because that would got pretty heated. OK, straight into Monday's Mail, Nick, and guess you're right about kissing through plastic bags after all.
Yep, the story we've all been concerned about, Josh. Gonorrhea can be spread by kissing. Experts claim medical advice peddled by health chiefs for decades needs to change. People have been saying it can't be spread through kissing, and this says it can. Although, hilariously, the generic pop-up bit in the article says it can't be, which has just come on from the NHS. You know those articles, I'm sure just for the viewer, you get an article, then there's an insert, comes from NHS Choices.
They haven't checked it out at all.
They haven't checked it, and it says that it can't be spread through kissing. But anyway, just for the people at home, some of the symptoms are thick green or yellow discharge from the genitals. And Lewis, that might explain what you were telling me about before the show, but I thought it was just your diet. But it's a discharge issue. Yeah, so this isn't just another reason, of course, to steer clear of the modern woman.
Although, interestingly, they actually sort of uncovered this by looking at studies involving gay and bisexual men, I think, in Australia.
Right. Yeah. So why straight men don't have it? We're fine.
Well, I don't know. It's strange. I don't know why they did it. And then they said, oh, because it was found in the throat. Yeah. And then I was thinking, well, that doesn't mean it was through kissing.
It could come from some other place. I don't even want to think about this. I think it's a disgusting...
Why not? Are you homophobic?
No, because I'll never have sex. You know what it is? Because based on my situation, I'll probably never have sex again. And it's like...
And when you say your situation, you mean your views on women?
No, you know what it is? No matter how good-looking I am, it's just like, I think I've
Think about that, Lewis. You're so good-looking. Think how bad your personality must be.
Okay.
You want to know something? You want to know something? I am good-looking.
Can I just say something? You are good-looking, and I genuinely believe that if you try hard, you will get gonorrhea if you want.
People say I'm cruel to Lewis for that comment, but he called me a racist during the break.
Oh, my God, let's not open that bag of words. The Mirror next, and it seems like someone is disgustingly trying to save young people's lives, Lewis.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. It's the other way around. It's young drivers can drive. Young drivers face a shock ban from giving friends a lift as new plans emerge. This is like a story yesterday, or whatever it was, where they said they basically don't want people who are under 25 years old with a full driver's license, who are probably the best drivers, a lot of them, because they've actually had to pass this test, which is one of the 7 steps of Hades or whatever it is to get this thing passed. They say they can't give anyone a ride.
Yeah, so basically it's actually what they're saying is they cannot give, if you've recently passed the test, you can't give anybody under 25 a lift. That's what they're saying, which is interesting because my wife recently passed her driver's test. Does that mean she can't drive the kids to school, which is the whole purpose of going through that and whatnot? I mean, Nick, what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, that would be impractical. I mean, it's tragic, obviously, but the answer is not necessarily just more safetyism, is it? We have this thing now, especially post-COVID. We've opened Pandora's box in terms of safetyism, so everything has to be made safe all the time. But obviously, lots of things aren't safe, and driving is one of them. Although, and the other thing, as Lewis said, we shouldn't involve the government in things too much either. Although, maybe the
government gave us seatbelts.
Maybe you shouldn't be able to drive till you're 25. I don't know. Maybe because I think you shouldn't be able to vote till you're 25 because the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. So and you're not fully rational. Why should you vote? So maybe, but I don't know. I'm just wondering about all these constant safetyism things. Some things just have a certain risk.
And it's like the law of unintended consequences. So you're 25 years old and you can't give your girlfriend who's 24 years old a ride. So
but yours is like 15, right?
Shocking.
So,
keep it for the breaks.
I think this is personally a very good idea. I passed my test at 17. I had a few very near, like one night I went out in town. I didn't put the lights on because I didn't realise that you were meant to put the lights on and everything was light. We went down a dual carriageway because we didn't figure out the system. It takes a bit of experience to actually learn how to be a practical driver. And when you have other people in the car, you're distracted. I think it's actually a very, very good idea.
No, actually, this is one of the worst things. It's more police state. It's more controlling of freedom of movement. It's stopping the young people from organising and going. That's one.
Some people have those P plates, but the problem is then people just see that driver as a victim and just treat them badly. You know what I mean? You have a P plate in London. It's like an advert for people to just abuse you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's what happened on the way in, actually. Switching over to the Telegraph and Nick, I initially thought this story was about our favourite kimono-wearing KC.
Oh, yeah, this is the fox killer, you mean. This is the RSPB employing people to kill foxes and crows away from public view, doing it in secret. But luckily, they've got old beefy Ian Botham on the case.
Yeah.
And he's been saying that actually... So what they're doing, they're using controversial traps which use live birds as bait, and they're shooting foxes from a distance where you can't be sure you've killed them. And what Ian Botham is saying, it's quite funny that it's Botham, but what he's saying is actually it was more humane to have a pack of dogs because you killed the wolf much quicker. Now they're only allowed 2 dogs maximum. So it's the kind of hypocrisy of these people. And it's also this that he's saying we don't actually know the science on it because Tony Blair never allowed it. He just banned fox hunting out of what he calls class hatred, which it was a kind of class warfare. And it's his typical, and I'm from the country, so I take it very personally, it's his attempt to always manage the country from people who don't understand the countryside, and we hate it.
Well, it does seem to be a fair bit of hypocrisy going on here, right, Lewis?
You know what? People don't want to kill foxes. And there's so many foxes. I mean, as a person coming from New York, when I came to London and there are foxes, I thought, this is amazing. But after a while, there's a bit too many of them, and how do you get rid of them?
Well, this is an EU-funded project because they're trying to save our curlews or something. Curlews, is that right? Curlew, sorry. Well, whoever wrote this article, and it really does want to kill foxes. That's one thing that very much came across there. Another story in The Guardian now, and this is scary stuff. Who wants a record of shopping at Sports Direct, Lewis?
Yeah, well, Sports Direct, this guy Mike Ashley, he owns Sports Direct, Flannels, and Frasier's, and a whole mess of other stuff. He's super rich. He owned Newcastle, and he's well hated around the country.
Just tell them about the story, mate.
And MPs condemned Frasier's group use of facial recognition cameras in stores.
Yeah, OK, so why they've got these facial recognitions? What's their purpose?
Because people steal things and break things, and this is a police state. And the MPs are upset because only the government, only the state should be keeping track.
It's a centralisation, right?
It's a centralisation issue. They don't want private people.
Okay, it's the death of love.
Yeah.
And you know what it's going to mean? It's going to mean that it's the death of love. Well, the other story was the death of love, that you can't have 25-year-olds escorting their 24-year-old girlfriends around. But they say that facial recognition software is like completely ineffective. It doesn't work.
Yeah. It's not good. I mean, they're treating, as I say, they're treating people like potential criminals. It's a bit like those cameras you see in, like, Tesco and Sainsbury's. You've got a camera view suddenly when you're buying stuff, and that feels intrusive. This is even worse because it's using live facial recognition, and where you assume those are just sort of normal CCTV. But it's so bad that it's got this cross-party support from David Davis, John McDonnell, and Tim Farron. I mean, that's very cross-party. You've got a Tory, you've got a Lib Dem, and basically a communist who got out Mao's book in the House of Commons. So a wide range of politicians are very worried about this.
Well, I like Sports Direct. It's where I get all my cheap school children's shoes. So let's see if they recognise me when I next go in. Last story to this section, we've got the Mail with surprising news that Generation Z are utterly useless, Nick.
Pathetic, yeah. Historic train carriages are taken out of service because Gen Z passengers can't work out how to open the doors. And it's idiocracy stuff, this. I mean, what they're now doing is getting rid of the trains because these kids can't open the... They should change the children, not the trains.
Just don't allow people under 25, maybe.
Right, or anyone this stupid. So they just left the door open, or they couldn't figure out how to open it. Because as we know, with some doors you have to open like any door.
Yeah.
You have to open them.
But they're used to pressing, or they're used to adults opening the doors
or
for
saying,
them.
Siri, open the door. It doesn't work like that.
So why don't they just stop before they board? It's a tourist train, right? It's not like a regular train. So there's tons of people there working the thing. You just explain to them, don't open the door, you're going to die. Don't try. Wait for someone to show you how to do it, or show
But this is actually a bunch of incidents, isn't it, on this particular rail line? They seem to have, like, drunk train drivers, or not one train that didn't even have a driver, that just sort of went off for a couple of miles.
Is this a tourist?
It's Severn Valley Railway.
Yeah. So this isn't it isn't like a mainline commuter line.
But the similarities are that turns out the drivers still get paid an absolute fortune, even on these trains. You see that $2.5 million? They're saying, oh, we need $1.5 million to help us. And then it turns out they all get...
Can I just say, I'm sorry, Jess, but I was slightly put off because I've just realised Lewis's thing is held together by a stick from a lollipop on the back. Yeah, did you realise that?
Let's show this. This is. I'm not going to be you. I just want to show people behind show business. This is show business, right? And this is what happens behind the scenes. A lollipop.
Because I lost the backing, so I
yeah.
So Lewis. I'm not going to be abused by you.
No, it's just I'm observing it.
Guys, we're going to go to an interval now. I'm looking forward to seeing if they're going to come back with any blood on anybody's face.
I'm having a very bad show.
And we're going to gear up for the final section. We've got Seagull.
And your job is to stop him.
I know, my job is to egg him on. And some Meghan, and you know which one. It'll be great. See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope? It's very much so. And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and I wish that I could say that we all made up during the break, but it's much worse than ever.
He said people don't like me.
They don't like you. They don't like
They
you.
do like
People
you.
love me.
Then you said, I've got more Twitter followers.
Yeah, because they're following him out of spite. Basically,
Oh my God.
just to see what he's doing, just so they can make fun of him, because you're so fixed. And nobody likes somebody who's like, oh, I'm so smart, and look at how smart I am.
I don't mean to do that. It's just natural.
You do. You do.
But you're right, I should have made up. I should have backed you, mate. I'm sorry, Lewis.
Back me this time.
As Lewis said in the break, every point I make is a point. That's a quote from Lewis.
Lewis, give us one of those points now about Monday's Telegraph. It says that she's moved on. Have you?
Yeah. Well, speaking of coronation heat, the Duchess of Sussex. Who
is the Duchess of Sussex?
Meghan Markle insisted she's moved away from race row. Is it row or row? Row with the royal family. She basically said bad things about the royal family, and people keep on mentioning that she said bad things, that the royal family is racist, and she can't back it up. She has no idea if the royal family is racist, because the royal family isn't racist. They hate everybody. They like black people if they're royalty. They just don't like. They don't care who picks their strawberries or who lines their parade route, whether they're black or white. They don't care.
Okay, thank you, Diane Abbott.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Well, it's funny that, as Lewis was saying, is it Race Row? And if there was somewhere that Meghan would live, it would be Race Row, isn't it? Because she's so obsessed with racism. So we don't know what happened. I mean, did she leak this story? Did the royals leak it? But now she's denying the story. There was never a problem. She didn't care about racism. She made a general point about unconscious bias. But I'm glad she's moved on. It's good to know the chick from Suits that the whole country hates is doing well.
Well, I like this thing that they put out, this statement. It said, we encourage the tabloid media and various royal correspondents to stop the exhausting circus that they alone are creating. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that on their next book, their next podcast,
Netflix documentary.
Interview. God, staying with the Telegraph. And Nick, where should we move together?
Wow, this is a travesty.
All three of us, by the way.
Now, this is, it's not a non-story, it's a story, but I'm angry, Lewis, because it says the greatest county in England, and it's claiming it's Devon, but Cumbria came second and was robbed, cruelly robbed, because they didn't like the weather. Everyone knows Cumbria is the greatest county. They said it was second for natural wonders. Second, we have all the natural wonders in Cumbria. Now, just because...
It said it was actually a distant second, is what it said.
Just because you put books on your shelf and they get moist because it's so wet the whole time, that's true. But, I grew up there,
But you're not living there right now,
the whole time.
You moved away,
I know,
right?
Tragically, because there's no work there and they're all backward. But the point is, it's a great place. They keep changing the name, is the annoying thing. It's Westmorland, it's Cumberland, now it's Cumbria, now they're changing it back. But
are they changing it back?
There's talk of it. It's all very complicated. We want to go back to the historic county.
It's like Sudan, really.
But anyway, Cumbria came second. They gave it to Devon. It's a travesty, and the North remembers.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Well, first of all, they call it the greatest county in England, which it isn't the greatest county. It's the best. There's a difference between best and greatest. America's the greatest country in the world. That's not like saying it's the best. It is the best too. But it's there's a difference between. We should use a thing. Okay. Secondly, there's 10 counties. This country is very weird because it has a place they put all of the lakes, right? Which is up there, which is the Lake District. There's a place they put all the peaks.
It wasn't like managed. They didn't put them there.
Sorry. Come on, you could hear the setup there. Peak District.
Peak District.
And then it's got
Lake District.
and
where all the pretty girls are, the Red Light District.
Nice. That's enough.
Anyway, speaking of 12, what about my calendar, which is coming up? Hey, let's look at July. July, it's coming out. We're getting our website ready.
That's actually, you've had that made then.
I've had that made. Yeah.
How many copies have you had?
We just have two. Lucy Harmon made it.
And that was made in the heart of Devon.
And how much are you going to be selling these for?
Well, we're going to sell it for £23 because I'd rather sell one. It's a pain to.
You will only sell one. For that
do I get any money for that? That was my idea.
It is your idea, of course.
Can I just say?
We forgot about it.
Sorry, it's not about Lewis's calendar, but all counties are great though. When I came back from, I spent a long time in Latin America once. I came back and just seeing on the plane the rolling hills of England, I was just almost moved to tears. It's such a beautiful country.
It is.
Thank you.
It is. And the greatest thing about this country is the green belt, which protects these beautiful counties. And if you cut back on the green belt, God will punish you.
OK, thank you so much for that point. Monday's Mirror has an interesting job opportunity for us to explore, Lewis.
Yeah, this is in Blackpool, the Blackpool Zoo. That zoo recruiting, they're recruiting human, quote, seagull deterrents who will dress up in bird costumes to scare away seagulls from the Blackpool Zoo. I don't know if it's a good zoo.
Well, it's got, I believe it's got one half-dead donkey.
OK.
And there we go, we've got a costume there. Or is that you? That's you on a Friday night?
That's the death of love.
That looks very hot. But then again, it's not that cool. It's not that warm in Blackpool.
No, that's what Lewis was doing before GB News.
You know what?
We hired him. We plucked him from obscurity. Plucked, no pun intended, like a bird.
Do you think I was unhappy doing that? A job.
You were much happier. That was the irony.
I'm not English like you.
You got sacked. You get insulting.
Heading now to the Metro.
The Blackpool Zoo says it goes without saying that we love all animals, Josh.
Okay, great.
Except for
save the Greenbelt. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Heading now to the Metro. And Nick, is this literally Black Panther forever?
Right, so this is fans blast Twitter as grotesque after late stars such as Chadwick Boseman, Chester Bennington and Kobe Bryant look like they've subscribed to Twitter Blue and they've suddenly got a blue check is what's happened. So Musk has been messing around with the blue checks. It's been very fun. This is a bit weird and unfortunate. It's an unfortunate thing that's happened. It's not deliberate, I don't think, but it's been very funny overall because all the blue tick people have lost their blue tick and they've all gone mad. And now he's suddenly giving it back to people like Owen Jones and they're all sort of virtue signaling that I didn't pay for this, I don't want it, which is hilarious. They're sort of weird, someone call it counter signaling, and they're so scared of the wrath of their comrades that they say, I didn't pay for this blue tick. So it's all very pathetic, but it's quite... And you see Musk, think about it for a second. Musk is someone who launches a rocket, it blows up and he goes, yeah, it was a good experiment, we learned a lot. So of course he doesn't care about winding up some whining celebrities. He's just testing things. He's going, let's give him the blue tick, let's take it away. I think he's just testing it out.
But I think this could kill Twitter, personally, because when you have 1 million people who are saying I can't be part of this blue tick business, I can't be seen on Twitter because of the circles there.
Isn't it so funny though, the tick that they coveted until a few days ago, they're now trying to disassociate from at all costs.
Well, see, do you agree with Lewis there that this could mean trouble for Twitter? I mean, if it does lose some of those people...
1 million.
I mean, it's possible that's why he reinstated the blue ticks, because they were talking about leaving and all this kind of thing. That is possible. I think he's perhaps... Who knows with Musk? Sometimes you think he's misjudged this blue tick thing. Then you remember he's a genius, so maybe it's 4D chess.
All right,
but blue ticks are...
Well done for getting the 4D chess.
Because I made a mistake at last night's show by saying I'm not going to get a blue tick until I get people... doing fake accounts.
All right. Thank you, Lewis, with your 4D drafts. Finally, The Guardian and Lewis make sense of this madness that our society has descended into, please.
Well, this is Agatha Christie faces plot twist after Rebecca Vardy trademark move, which is basically it isn't a trademark move because my father was a copyright and trademark attorney in the United States of America, international trade.
Must be very proud of you.
He's dead. He's dead now. I'm proud of my dad anyway. So I know a little bit about this. And this Agatha Christie thing was based on they have a play which is the fight between Rebecca Vardy and Colette Rooney. And
Thank you so much for that insight.
But it was actually coined by... She's trying to say she coined it, but it was coined by comedian Dan Atkinson.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if anybody should get it, he should get some money, sure.
But it's not...
It's another comic getting ripped off, and we've seen that time and again, where comics, their jokes were they're stolen and used in sell T-shirts.
Yeah, luckily, Lewis's never gets stolen. That's the great thing.
But it's not a trademark. A trademark is registered, you have to pay money, and it's the name. A copyright is when you write something and it gets seen in advance.
Well, look at that. We learned something. Thank you so much, you guys. The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. We've got The Times. Corbyn sparks new Labour row over racism. Corbyn ally, that should say. The Eye, Abbott loses Labour whip over offensive race comments. The Telegraph, UK citizens abandoned amid feeble response to Sudan crisis. Daily Mail, time to scrap the tourist tax and get Britain booming again. The Mirror, Rod, give nurses a rise now. Finally, the Daily Star, coronation heat, swelter to be a real belter. Now, thank you very much to my dream team of Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. Thank you. You were both excellent as always. We are back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Simon sitting here and me sitting over there. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
It's It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "No, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real